This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome in, my friends, to another episode of Behind the Pen. My name is Mike Rankin, and I will be your host for today's show, and I'm by myself. And you would think, wow, Rankin, why are you by yourself? You're so entertaining with other people. Well, guess what? I'm going to be entertaining on my own today, and it's probably a good thing because I got tons of built-up hot takes to just explode into your earlobes that go through your nerve endings into your brain so you can register it. Now, I hope your brain is competent enough to understand where I'm coming from, and I'm going to preview it in a minute, but first I got to take care of some necessities here. First, patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. Guys, what we have going here at MVP is pretty good, in my opinion, and this is not biased in any means, but our last Patreon podcast, which is exclusive to Patreons, you have to become a Patreon to listen to this. It was Mark, Ricky, and I, and we had a great time pretending we were in high school again, playing Would You Rather. Ricky stole the show. It was a lot of fun. Hope you guys who are patrons can enjoy that. Future patrons, enjoy it because it was a good time. Also, what we do for you if you become a patron is entertain you more so than we already do. Obviously, you can subscribe to us on YouTube at Most Valuable Podcasts, but if you become a Patreon, you help us get better at what we do. And hopefully, to this point, you are satisfied with our product. If you're not, that's fine. Whatever. But follow me also on Twitter at Rankin906. That's where all the good content is. But today, I'm probably going to keep this podcast a little shorter than normal, only because it is July 28th as I record this, and we are in the midst of the baseball season, trade season specifically, and August 1st will be the deadline. And what I have planned really is to just react to all of the trades that go down and kind of break them down once they've happened. I'm not going to sit here and rattle off all these hypotheticals, even though there's enough information to maybe foresee where players are going to go. I'm just going to take that on the wayside for now. I'm just going to leave it be, and then we're going to come up with something on the trade deadline. So hopefully you guys can stay tuned for that. Now today, if you haven't really been paying attention to Behind the Pen, if you're a first-time listener, thank you, welcome in. But you guys who have been listening and reacting and commenting and sharing, you guys know that I'm a Cub fan. And I think you guys know where I'm going with this one. The Chicago Cubs made a deal to acquire one of the most dominant pitchers in all of baseball. And I have mixed feelings on it. Let's put it that way. So I'm going to get into it. I'm going to talk about the Aroldis Chapman trade. Hopefully I entertain you enough, but all right, let's get into this conversation because it's really been bugging me. It really has over the last few days, ever since the trade. Now, I want to preface this by saying that I was against them going after Chapman, and I know I might get bashed for that thought, only because he's so damn good, but it's just, I have my reasons. So, okay. The Cubs could have gone several different ways to bolster their bullpen, and it was obvious they needed to make moves. They traded for Mike Montgomery, and the guy that they got rid of was Dan Vogelbach, and a lot of people were high on him, despite the fact the Cubs really didn't have a spot for him defensively. He has value, and they got Mike Montgomery, young, cost control, 27 years old. That's kind of young. Cost control, left-handed pitcher, fill the need there. Except he hasn't been good since being acquired by the Chicago Cubs, but I'm sure he'll even it out eventually. At least I hope. I wanted to bring up the Vogelbach thing just to continue on to where this conversation is going to go, because there's kind of a pattern here. Anyway, the Aroldis Chapman deal. They traded Gleyber Torres, Adam Warren, Billy McKinney, and Rashad Crawford for Aroldis Chapman. Now you say, wow, the Yankees just got a great return. Gleyber Torres is automatically the New York Yankees' top prospect. Adam Warren was acquired in the Starlin Castro trade. So, literally, the Cubs traded Castro for Brendan Ryan, who was immediately DFA'd, and Adam Warren, who's back on the Yankees. They got nothing for Castro. In the end, they netted Chapman, but they just gave them Castro for pretty much nothing. Continuing on, you take Gleyber Torres, who, like I said, is just plugs in as the top Yankees prospect in their system. Granted, the Yankees don't have many prospects that are deemed good because Billy McKinney is all of a sudden their fourth best, so that's not good. But the Cubs got the best reliever in the game, next to Diaz of Seattle. Aroldis Chapman throws 100 and dominates opposing hitters. The one thing that I really do like about this deal, and it's, man, I am going to be so contradicting here in this podcast because I have so many I'm so mixed up about this. Because, of course, Aroldis Chapman has those domestic violence charges. And I know people who are victims of domestic violence. I know people whose parents were among those who suffered from domestic violence mentally, physically. It's terrible. And I take that very seriously. So let's back it up. Aroldis Chapman. The charges were in the offseason that he allegedly choked his girlfriend. They were in a garage, I believe, and Chapman shot 8 rounds of his gun as warning shots. He wasn't charged. They were dropped. He was fine. Major League Baseball suspended him for 30 games. Came back with the Yankees. No reported issues. I guess he was just doing his own thing and, he was staying out of trouble. Just picked up right where he left off. Dominant as ever. Yankees reaped the benefits of him to gain a top prospect, a top infielder in Gleyber Torres, who will be a mainstay for them for a long time. And also they got some decent value for a rental. There were rumors that extension was on the table for Aroldis Chapman with the Cubs. 4 years, $60 million I saw. That didn't happen. I'm sitting here scratching my head because a lot of things went down over the last few days that really didn't help me cope with the fact that Chapman's with the Cubs. Oh, believe me, for the baseball side of it, this is fantastic. If you just look at a guy who shows up at the ballpark, does his job, and then you totally forget the fact that he lives a normal life outside of Wrigley Field or wherever they're playing, that's fantastic. Not only did the Cubs gain the best reliever and is going to be automatically slotted as the 9th inning guy, at least during the regular season, they also kept him away from other National League contenders like the Nationals. So that's probably the biggest gain, more so than just Chapman coming to the Cubs. So what I'm getting at, really, because I have so many opinions, look, I was disgusted with this trade. I was. I didn't want him. I thought the Cubs could fill the need elsewhere. You know what? I thought that they could kill 2 birds with 1 stone because they do need another bat. And I'm not saying this bullpen is complete by any means. And I'm not saying getting a reliever that's not Chapman gets them to the level where they are now with him. I'm thinking to myself, look, you have an opportunity to get a Josh Reddick who's rumored to be on the market. You got a guy in Ryan Madson, even Sean Doolittle on the A's that Billy Beane would likely be willing to part ways with. So why not make that move? Get Reddick and a reliever that's decent. I know Doolittle's having a terrible year, but Ryan Madson's the guy I like a lot. He's been very good. He could automatically slot into your high leverage situation late in the game. That's where his value is. But instead, they went with, I need to get Chapman, the most dominant. You have a hole in the bullpen, and he fills it. In that sense, it's fantastic that the Cubs have the most dominant reliever in baseball. On the other side, the Chicago Cubs made it a point. They often make it a point that they rely on character, high character guys, and they really like the culture that they've established in the clubhouse. And I'm not saying Aroldis Chapman is this cancer who's going to break it all up, just destroy this chemistry. But what you get in return is a lot of baggage. And I understand Chapman was not found guilty here, but these are some serious allegations. Choking a woman, shooting, warning, freaking, it makes me sick. And they bring him in. But the due diligence of the Chicago Cubs organization, Tom Ricketts, Theo Epstein, Ricketts said that he went through the process. He said, they looked at how he was with New York, how he was behaving in that clubhouse, around the city, what he was as a teammate, and I guess he passed all the tests. Theo Epstein, then. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Theo Epstein calls Chapman, and they talk about it, and Epstein tells the press he himself did due diligence around Aroldis Chapman. He also said that he spoke to Chapman and then he was in a conversation over the phone that he was happy with. And here's a direct quote. Here's a direct quote from CBS 670 The Score from Theo Epstein. As Epstein says, the trade was contingent on that conversation. If we had not been satisfied with what we heard from Aroldis, we would not have moved forward. And here's the kicker. He says, Aroldis was really heartfelt. Okay, sure. Now, I'm not saying people don't make mistakes, but this is a damn different mistake than many others. So, yeah, I'm going to hold this against Chapman for the rest of his time as a Cub. And personally, I hope he's gone after the season. If he wins us a World Series, I'm not going to not cheer for him, obviously, because I want this more than a lot of things. I need the Cubs to win a World Series. And a lot of people do. And a lot of people are conflicted, are dealing with a lot of the same thoughts that I am. So I hope that I can relate to some of you. But Epstein said Aroldis was really heartfelt. You want to hear something funny? If you haven't heard already, and if you've been following closely to this story, you probably have. Aroldis Chapman addressed the media the other day with all of Chicago media just swarming him. He had a translator in Henry Blanco. And what he said, he was asked about the conversation he had with Theo Epstein. Aroldis said that he woke up from a nap and he doesn't remember the conversation he had with Epstein. Really? Really? That's your best answer for that question? Just talk about the fact that you're remorseful and that you want to be a good teammate. You want to help the Chicago Cubs win. That's all you gotta freaking say. That's how you answer that question. Instead, he's like, oh, I don't know. I was groggy. I woke up from a nap and I just don't remember. Okay? Really? That's the best you can do? So, for those who are on the fence with the acquisition of Aroldis Chapman, that definitely did not help sway others' opinion. And it definitely didn't swerve mine in any sense of the imagination. It didn't. And I'm going to be the biggest critic of Chapman from now on. I mean, ever since he was in conversations coming to the Cubs, I just didn't want it to happen. I didn't. But as I mentioned before, I felt like the Cubs had an opportunity to go a different route, and they didn't necessarily have to give up all this value for Chapman. I'm so torn about this Aroldis Chapman thing. Because Chapman comes in against the White Sox in his debut and just shuts the door. And that's probably what we're going to expect to see over the remainder of the regular season. And during the playoffs, they'll probably use him in the most high leverage of spots. And that's the smart thing to do. I kind of ranted a little bit, and I hope you forgive me for it. Overall, I just don't feel right about this trade. I don't like it, despite the fact that in a baseball sense, it's a fantastic move. At the same time, you're giving up all this talent for a rental reliever. He's going to hit free agency after this year. That's a fact. The Cubs, of course, have a chance to re-sign him, but I hope he gets the hell out. It doesn't come back because I can't stand the guy. I really cannot. And I have no sympathy for a person. Yeah, you could say he paid his dues, get over it. No, you have no idea the damage unless you're a victim of domestic violence. You do not know the seriousness of it. The situations that not only affect the victim, but the people around the victim, especially younger children. I just can't have any sympathy for this man. And he walks around, he's just going about his day. And that's fine. That's a fine way to live. But I'm holding it against him. And I don't want to keep bagging on Chapman, but I got to bring up some stuff real quick, and then I'll end this conversation. I'm going to try and end it on a high note. With Chapman, there have been reports, even Matt Latos. I saw an article. Matt Latos, when he was with the Cincinnati Reds, and Aroldis Chapman was their closer, he said the clubhouse wasn't run to standards of a Major League Baseball team, right? He said that their closer would sleep until the 7th inning. That was Chapman. Also, we can't forget about what happened in 2014 with Rizzo and Chapman. Chapman threw, I believe it was Nate Schierholtz. He threw at Schierholtz twice at his head. And as he walked off the mound, because he struck him out, Chapman just waved his glove off to Rizzo. Rizzo reacted the following half inning by going up to the Reds dugout and just jawing at him. And I guess that issue got resolved pretty quickly, but ever since that day, I've really, really despised Chapman, and now he's on my team. And now I'm forced to root for him. Because if I don't, I'm rooting against the Cubs winning, and I want that more than anything. And I guess so does Theo, because he just throws the culture thing, the whole push for positive character. He threw that out the door as soon as he signed Chapman. That's gone. A lot of people are not going to root for the Cubs anymore this year. Suddenly they're the bad guy. One move makes you the bad guy. But I guess it's all justified if they win the World Series, right? I don't like it. I don't like it. I thought they could get more value for Gleyber Torres. They could look elsewhere, make smart, savvy moves that didn't involve Chapman. But at the end of the day, he's a Cub. He's going to do very good things on the field for them. And as much as I hate the idea of Aroldis Chapman, I guess we just got to live with it.